we wanted to present here how we use the NFV SDN ecosystem. Fortinet is a VNF vendor in here, in the all things, and you learn from my titles, especially the SECaaS, that we want to really work at the global industry to help the industry move to security as a service properly. So building, orchestrating, all that is great, makes things more agile, faster. We love it as a security. We love the fact that you can do lifecycle and that you can patch things, but there is also some very strong security aspects that needs to be taken into account, and we want to help the industry move there so that you can sell the security and we sell the technology for that. Okay, that's the stuff. So basically what we wanted to do, I think it was more than 1.5 years ago, we wanted to have our FortiGate, our firewalls, being part of SFC and SH chain. And that's, I'm going here to tell the story of what we've done and how we did it. So we started with OpenDaylight, who has an implementation of NSH for a long time. We have an OpenDaylight developer and team. So just to show you that some of the VNF vendors are serious about those environments. And we leverage all the open source things, which is great for VNF vendors because we can actually have part of the infrastructure for ourselves for the time we need for developing new features and developing new stuff. Even though Fortinet is not an open source company, we publish some of the stuff. Here we publish how you use FortiGate to put it in SFC NSH chain. And more importantly, we publish our test bed. So when we put together the test bed with all the functions, the classifier, the forwarder, all this and that, and the generation of traffic. We need that to be able to build, to understand what's going on, and to build the capability in our own products. So we share those with the ecosystem because it's a very good way for us to help through the open source communities to help show how you can use our stuff into the ecosystem. It also works with non-open source vendors because they see examples, and if you've done any software developments, an example is worth any specification, and eat specification for breakfast. So we need to teach the FortiGate all the NSH ID, the VXLAN, and using the virtual wiper, because for doing firewalling and security, you need both ways. And by default, what we had with the first version of OpenDaylight we use, it was only doing one chain. But to do a firewall, we need both ways. Also, we learn and discuss with IETF because when we put a firewall on a SFC and SH chain, you have this SFID, you do the firewalling. What does a firewall? It drops the packet. It drops the bad packet. But if you tell no one, you will end up with a huge pile of session not closed, and you will clog your system. So we had to discuss with IETF or to fix those things also at the specification level, because that's important if you want to have firewalling in your chains. So just very quickly, how you do enable that on the FortiGate. What is important here is actually here. What we end up doing is not only understand traffic and a chain and all that. We directly map a SFID, a service chain ID, to a security policy. No need for complex mapping to a traffic plus the chain and this and that. It's straightforward. It detects SFID, you apply the security policy to it. Full stop. Easy. So from a management perspective, it's very important that we ended up with this. So we were able to do it on a single Open Daylight environments on one machine, basically. But then we said, no, it's not enough. We need to be able to scale and see what's going on. So we tried the OpenStack SFC implementation. And I was deeply involved in that personally, and I tell you, it's hard. So there is a lot to do there for on having this working properly and helping. But we tried, and we learned also and help, because that code at that time, again, it's more than a year ago, allows to have the two pairs we needed for the wire pair and the traffic both ways. So that was important for us, and we being able to develop those code and the wire pair setup for our FortiGate there, and being able to test that we can scale, we can put more VMs and have the classifying and the rest moving around multiple VMs. And finally, last spring, we participate to the HC plug test from the first one for all the interrupt plug test from the very beginning. It will be a nice intro for what's following. We were able to collocate with OPNFV, and they were able to provide us a working environments for SFC and SH, because what I mentioned before was, for us, kind of playgrounds testing stuff, not really totally ready for production or dry, but we don't want to wait the platform and the NFV platforms to be ready, fully ready before we do anything, because otherwise the whole industry lose several cycles and months. So that's why we started early. And we were able to put the FortiGate in a chain with both ways in the OPNFV Plugtests with partners, so with SUSE, the OPNFV community, the Open Daylight community, Tacker, all together for showing in real life that we could do the SFC and SH finally for real in that environment. So a bit of the details on that. So we were able to put the chain on between client and servers VMs using the OpenStack Queen, orchestrated with Tacker. On that note, OPNFV is moving to OSM to replace Tacker, and we are already partner with all the orchestrators for a long time anyway. So in the global, we leverage our global positioning as VNF vendor in the ecosystem, where we work with all the orchestrators. We don't have a generic, we don't have a specific VNF manager. We use only generic ones, which makes the integration much simpler. And for that, we already have the relationship with OSM. I'm a former founding member of OSM, so I like it. And they have the forwarding graphs capabilities as an orchestrator, which is the most important part when you want to orchestrate chains and NSH environments in general. It was the Open Daylight SDN controller and the Open vSwitch. And of course, that was for the OPNFV plug test. What we want to do now is really to move forward and test with more platforms, tell the world that there is commercial VNFs providing SFC and SH support directly, and that we want to work with those things. As you can see, we can put a FortiGate on multiple chains, because they can just map the SFID to the thing. And I was talking about scaling. If you start to have reached the limit of that FortiGate, you can spin up another one and put the chain on, move the chain around with the classifying. we see that as a very, the SFC and SH environments as a very promising way to deliver security as a service, because it's really fit in between the tenant provider model of the IaaS, where you can really focus on your network security or optimization only, in addition to provide NFVs or services to your end customers. And today there is kind of a missing piece here in between providing a IaaS, just a network, an overlay network, and providing advanced function in your networks from SD-WAN and application level security to them without being the tenant. There is something there that is not totally, it's always a bit twisted and complex. So we do think that this SFC and SH approach can really help there for the network providers to deliver network capabilities like security in a very understandable manner, where the tenant can say, this is my traffic and I want it to be protected. So what we want now is a call to the audience for people who have SFC and SH project. We want to be tried, we want to test and go live in a real life. So we are ready for that now. And I want to send it's not there yet, unfortunately, for Miguel Angel Munoz, who's the one actually, who is our ODL developer, and he was the one actually pushing for those functions, working with our engineering and all that to make all that work, making the test bed, and he's the one pushing the test bed environments we have as open source projects in the open. So he's really the one who did the work on that. And that leaves me quite some time for questions, which is always good.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes. So there's a microphone. Thank you. Can you please further enlighten what the issues are with the security policies that you were raising in the last slide? The second bullet.
It's not really an issue. It's one of the advantage of once we discover, thanks to all these environments, we can sneak in and see really in real life. We ended up doing the SFC ID, the NSH, the ID of the chain, and map the security policy to it, and which from a security point of view makes it much easier to manage than having to, if you don't do that, you will have to correlate between your traffic and your chain and the different endpoints to apply your security policy to it. Here you are very straightforward, SFID, security policy, apply. That's it. Oops, sorry. This is for us a very strong advantage for operation, because it makes it much easier to understand and much straightforward between your SFID, your chain ID, and your security policy. Any other questions, remark? Mike.
Tried using any metadata in the security policy for, let's say, subscriber or user ID or something? So it's a metadata in the NSH for subscriber information, so you can use that in the security policy.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We have other things like the reverse path is important to us, because that was, I mentioned some of the lessons when we tried that. The rest of the metadata, we are not there yet. Just my timer. Okay. Okay, thank you.